an unconstitutional hoax.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised, with your help, to fully launch before the end of 2019. We look forward to partnering with you.
Good morning, North Korea! Aloha and welcome to Trust and Verify, the only show where the hosts continually remind you, do not trust me, verify it. We got a great show planned for you, but before we can get to that, I got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, how's it going in the land down under?
Very good, dear leader. It's a pleasure to worship you at your feet, to serve you, my great exalted one. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us here on a Sunday night. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Thanks for sharing the show out. If you did, if you didn't, well then straight to the death camp with you. That's straight right. To the hard labor camp. 20 years hard labor. That's what you get. Yes, James, President Trump in North Korea. Just before we get to our first article here, which is North Korea, can I just wish everybody in the audience of the American persuasion a very happy 4th of July, upcoming 4th of July, James. It's a special time when Americans of all races, colors, and creeds get together and wave flags made in Vietnam, shoot fireworks invented by the Chinese, in order to celebrate their liberation from a tyrannous government whilst the Democrats try to remove their duly elected president. So I just want to say a round of applause to America. Happy 4th.
Awesome.
Happy 4th of July. What are your plans for the 4th, James?
work, and more work. Yeah, that's usually a brutal day for me. Got to help out my day job, so I try to squeeze in some scoping of some fireworks. But yeah, it's work nonstop. It's about a 20-hour work day.
Oh, good. So you're going to celebrate your liberation from the high taxation of the British government by working 20 hours in order to pay more tax.
Yes, but it's in a good. How do you say this? It's for a good cause. So why we do it is to support the men and women of our military. We actually become part of the festivities for our military people generally on Pearl Harbor. So those guys need to do their thing. So we go and we work in support of them.
Excellent, good stuff. Hopefully it's all calm, or hopefully the waters are calm in Pearl Harbor this time around, James. Because with Donald Trump gallivanting around in North Korea, who's to say maybe we are on the brink of yet another nuclear disaster in the Eastern world, James. Let's have a look here. Our first article today comes from the Washington Post. Beyond Freedom's Frontier, Trump scores his biggest live show yet in North Korea. Just for the clicks, mate. Just clickbait, this stuff. The Debrief, an occasional series offering a reporter's insights. James, for President Trump, it was the biggest live show yet. A handshake with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and then a short stroll together beyond Freedom's Frontier and into the Hermit Kingdom. One small step for the 45th president, one giant boost for his television ratings. It's all for ratings, guys. Trump billed his third meeting with Kim on Sunday in the Korean demilitarized zone as a simple handshake, perhaps to play down the consequences if the get-together ultimately fails to break the deadlock that scuttled their last round of nuclear talks in Hanoi in February. But the moment was more than simple. It marked another in a series of remarkable set pieces that Trump has used over the past 2 years, first to bully Kim, then to engage him in a diplomatic gambit that has no precedent. Critics often accuse the media-obsessed president of trying to conduct diplomacy on Twitter. The place, pardon me, the place where Little Rocket Man and Fire and Fury were born during the early days of Trump's tenure, and when he and Kim were chest-beating in a barrage and threats and insults. Yet Trump has also carefully cultivated elaborately staged moments that, strung together, reveal a president eager to play the roles of producer and director, calling the camera shots, hyping the drama, and building up public expectations for a big reveal. So, James, is this one small step for the 45th president and one giant leap for the content creator-in-chief? Is this merely a cynical ploy by Donald Trump to get eyeballs on the corporate press? Is that what we're dealing with here?
Yeah, no, obviously, clearly not at all. If you're Asian, you get this. If you understand Asian politics, you get this. And if you understand the deep state, you get this. Because Donald Trump just kicked their fucking asses. I mean, literally, like, if you watch the news coverage, you can absolutely tell what he just did is end run all the fucking State Department jockeys that have been fucking these things up. He just went right around them and gave them no opportunity to fuck this up, right? We know for a fact that this wasn't just a Twitter spur of the moment thing. How do we know that? Because during the press conferences, Donald Trump said several times how the South Korean president was like, this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. Several times he said, Moon said, this is unprecedented. Oh my God. So you can tell that there was actually diplomatic channels that were involved. They just weren't involved until the last second. And he threw the press the bone in order to justify what was going on. So you see that this was a complex issue, but what he really did was end run all the deep state fucks. And if you watched Fox News' coverage, they had a State Department jockey on there for like 6 hours, and they kept trying to say, this is a great optics, it's a good place to start, but now the State Department guys got to get in there and work it out with the teams. He's like, yeah, no, what happened is the president just fucked you, and you guys are out, now get the shit done. I mean, it was spectacular. And the other side of this is the Asian side, the politics side, from what is going on in the Asian space. A lot of people don't understand the concept of face. Essentially what face is your public stature. Doesn't even matter if you're a peon as long as your face looks like you're a leader. So what Donald Trump basically just did is hand delivered Kim Jong-un face after his loss. Because remember, him not getting that deal done in Hanoi reflected really bad on him. That's why you had all the journalists going crazy saying he killed everybody. Well, that's another narrative put to bed by the president. The president said, no, I know for a fact those guys are still alive. And there was a picture of his sister. So all the fake news that said that he killed everybody is full of shit, too. So you can see that Donald Trump gave Kim Jong-un the face he needed to push this deal forward. And Kim Jong-un, look at how he basically ran out there like a little kid and was like, I never imagined that you would ever meet me here. Holy shit. I mean, it was perfect all the way around. This was politics 101 at its finest. They will be studying this in poli-sci classes for the rest of history, and how he was able to be a European-styled president and a European-styled politician that affected Asian politics on Asians' wavelengths.
Yeah, so I agree with all that, and I'm very cynical with the way it's being reported, but what else would you expect?
Right.
People are saying this is all for show, and but they're half right. This is the thing with fake news. There's half truths.
Right.
Yes, it is for show, but that show has very significant consequences in the realm of face, like you mentioned, because that's what it is all about show, right?
That's right.
It's all
That's
about showing to be, the bigger man, so to speak. So, and here's the other thing too. Kim could have really have embarrassed President Trump today. He really, if he had have got all the way to the end and then decided, you know what, I'm not going to walk out and let's just see what the president does. That could have destroyed President Trump's little moment here, and he would have been a worldwide laughingstock standing there waiting for the North Korean dictator. He could have done that. So the fact that Kim actually walked out and did shake hands is a sign of, I think, at least publicly, the persona that Kim wants to portray, that being that he's willing to work with Trump, he's willing to come to some kind of agreement, at least publicly. Now, we can be cynical and say that nothing's going to come of it, sure. But that's a future conversation. The people in the corporate press and the Democrats and whatnot who are criticizing him for this is 99 lengths of the field further along than anybody else has previously gotten. And that cannot be denied. That cannot be denied.
Absolutely. Yeah, the whole thing there of course you're cynical, but the main thing is, look, let's forget that this happened for 1 second. Where were we on Saturday? Saturday, we were getting no progress. We were getting no deal. The State Department was doing shit, and North Korea was doing shit. President Trump just jump-started all that shit. Went over there. Like you said, Kim could have said, nope, can't meet. Kim could have not shook his hand. Kim could have not invited him into North Korea. Kim could have not come back to the South Korean side. Kim could not have done a press conference. Kim could not have done any of that things. I mean, he had multiple chances to even just slight. Like, look, in Asian politics, it's the art of the slight, okay? It's not the art of the stab you in the fucking face. It is the art of the slight. If for example, let's give you a perfect slight. Justin Trudeau at the G20, who got slighted by both President Xi of China and Bolsonaro of Italy, and was left looking like a fucking, hey guys, somebody shake my fucking hand. Please, somebody pay attention to me. See, that's the art of the slight. He got slighted, and he got left at the altar feeling like a dumbass. Kim could have done a billion different things to slight Donald Trump there, and he did none of them. He treated him with respect, magnanimity, and they got a deal started. That's more than we had on Saturday.
100%. Speaking of respect, James, a group of people who are very respectful of their fellow citizens, and especially the boys in blue, Antifa. Antifa has been very busy. Oh, they're all about respect, James, about Antifa. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not. 3 arrested and 8 injured as Portland protests turned violent. There's an image there of one of the anti-fascists standing up to the fascist bike cop wearing his high-vis yellow on the streets of Portland. 3 people were arrested and 8 people injured, including at least 3 police officers, during violent demonstrations in Portland on Saturday, according to police. The fascists, James. The fascists. Multiple assaults were reported, police said, and items were thrown at demonstrators and officers that looked like milkshakes but contained quick, dry concrete. I can't remember which one of the politicians came out not long ago and said what happens if they start filling these cups with concrete, right? Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? Somebody came out? And it's like clockwork, and then all of a sudden all of these people are like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Why the hell didn't we think of that? And then off they go. Portland Fire and Rescue medics treated 8 people on the scene, authorities said, including 3 police officers. According to CNN, Portland affiliates KOIN and KATU, clashing demonstrators included anti-fascist protesters and members of several right-wing groups, including the far-right group, James, the Proud Boys. A website for the Rose City Antifa group earlier this month called on supporters to defend the city against the Proud Boys. I've got a couple of news stories here, newsreels I want to run past. I want to do a little bit of analysis with you, James, about the reporting on the news here. And let's talk about what's happening on the ground in Portland, shall we?
This was the scene in downtown Portland this afternoon. Fights broke out and several people were arrested after hundreds of members of Antifa, patriot groups, and the Proud Boys clashed in downtown today. You're watching KOIN 6 News at 11. Good evening. I'm Emily Burris. Portland police say they have arrested 3 people from today's rallies. They are these people here: Maria DeHart, James Stocks, and Gage Halapowski, all behind bars tonight on charges of assault and harassment. Officers also say 8 people were treated by medics at the scene. 3 of those were police officers. Also tonight, police say they're investigating reports of a cement-like substance being mixed into milkshakes thrown at the protest. One of the people who says he was hit is this man, Andy No, a conservative freelancer and blogger from Portland.
Conservative?
No was out covering today's rallies when he says...
Go ahead.
They just said he was a conservative freelancer. I'm pretty sure he's still a liberal. I'm pretty sure he's actually stated that. And he is a gay Vietnamese guy, clearly not mentioned in this piece. I'll have to check that. Yeah, I'll have to check into if he's conservative, because I'm pretty sure he's a liberal.
He writes for Quillette.
What the hell is Quillette?
They've been around for a while. I just want to give a little tip of the hat here to the most unreliable source, James, Brian Stelter. Now, who saw this over the last 24 hours from Bri? Let's check it out.
One more important story that you need to know about before we take a break. This is a protest that turned violent against a member of the media in Portland, Oregon this weekend. Conservative journalist Andy No was out there covering rival protests on Saturday. Antifa on one side, right-wing figures on the other side. But as the demonstrations clashed, protesters, it appears to be Antifa protesters, then attacked No. He's been out there in the past. He's been covering protests in Portland for quite some time. His critics say he's there to cause trouble. But that's unacceptable. The idea that he would be attacked, that he would be bloodied in that way, unacceptable. Period. And it's important that everyone make that clear, even left-wing critics who don't like him.
Awesome.
There you go, James. The sun does shine on a dog's ass some days, to take the words from Wesley Snipes in White Men Can't Jump. Brian Stelter actually probably near killing himself, saying that the media should not be targeted regardless of whether we like them or not. So congratulations, Brian Stelter. To steal a line from Major Payne, James, you have been upgraded from turd to maggot. Congratulations, Brian. Now, I want to show you a little bit of this news report, another report about the protest, James.
Protest groups clashed in downtown Portland today. Opposing groups met in 2 locations, eventually squaring off at Pioneer Courthouse Square. According to police, medics helped 8 people. 3 of them were police officers who required medical attention. That includes 1 officer who got hit in the head with a projectile. 3 people went to the hospital because they were assaulted with weapons. 3 people were arrested. James Stocks and Maria DeHart were charged with harassment. Gage Halapowski.
Can I just say how funny it is for the Antifa people to be attacking police? Can you imagine being a police officer in this city where you are being ordered to stand down and let go through the very people who are attacking you? Because it's not the patriot groups, right, that are attacking the coppers. It's the Antifa. Because Antifa is like, oh, we hate the police state. We hate the police. We hate fascism, blah, blah, blah. Ironically, they dress a lot like the SWAT teams that they fight against. Amazingly, I would have thought if you're trying to stand for anti-fascism, would a little bit of color in the ensemble kill you? Like, can we maybe have like a bright colored T-shirt? Why do they have to dress all in black? How about a rainbow bandana, James? How about a rainbow balaclava? Like, just let's have a little bit of color, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of positivity. You don't have to, if you're trying to fight against fascism, why are you dressing like fascists? I don't get it.
He is charged with assault. Those arrests come after a contentious chain of events that lasted for hours in downtown Portland. Fox 12's Audrey Wheel takes us through it all.
Take us through it all, Audrey.
The protesters ended up here at Pioneer Courthouse Square. Police even closed the square at one point and called the gathering a civil disturbance.
A civil disturbance, James. Not a riot, a civil disturbance. Because if you call it a riot, that brings in a whole different set of conditions and a different way that the police are forced to deal with it, right? If it's a civil disturbance, they can say, everybody, please move along. I didn't know
civil disturbances included attempted murders, but that's just me.
Yes. Well, yeah, you've probably seen the images on Twitter going around, people being hit over the head with crowbars and being opened up, getting stitches on their heads. A little more than a civil disturbance, I would have thought. But then again, I'm just a fascist. So, I mean, really, what opinion, what worth is my opinion in this discussion, James, right?
It started with two opposing groups.
I mean, look at these guys. Now they look like a poor man's riot squad. They look like the poor man's SWAT team. This is what I imagine the SWAT teams would be dressing like in, poor African countries where they can't afford all the good equipment. You know what I mean? Like we are from the SWAT team. We are from the government. We are SWAT team. And it's like, fucking really? Like, with that second-hand motorbike helmet? Come on, man.
It started with two opposing groups. The domestic terrorists. The Him Too movement held a rally at Pioneer Courthouse Square. And the Oregon Democratic Socialists of America met up with Antifa and others at Lounsdale Square, each there to protest the other.
If we don't come out here, then it's kind of like...
I don't know if you noticed that in the background, James. You've got to be very quick sometimes. Wherever there is an Antifa rally and a Patriot fight, James, on the streets, there is a Starbucks. Have you noticed that? A Starbucks is always there, looking over the audience.
That's
because
fantastic.
when you're going to bash the fash, you need to do so with your favorite vanilla latte, James. That's the only way to fight the fash.
The other.
If we don't come out here, then it's kind of like they win.
The minute we stop showing up, they win, and we can't let that happen.
Can't let that happen.
Hundreds of people at Lounsdale Square started marching. They wove through downtown and the waterfront, trying to dodge police.
I mean, look at them. It goes, okay, so there's your police, there's your riot squad, there's your SWAT team. Now look at Antifa. What's the difference? Look at them. They look exactly like the fucking SWAT team. What am I missing here?
I like this guy right
fascism.
Here. Hold on. Look at this guy here I think that's got a clown's red nose on. He's got the fucking the clown rainbow tights with some fucking Ronald McDonald clogs on. What the fuck is that, dude? Oh my god. That's a guy that didn't get the dress code memo. Oh, and don't forget the 1980s Breakfast Club trench coat, too.
Exactly. Now, see, this is the kind of Antifa look that I want to see.
Right.
This is, I mean, all of a sudden it goes from being a scary black mask, fight the fash to, hey, everybody, I'm just here because I love trans people, okay? And that's the way it should be. Think about the optics here. Do you think it's a good look for the Democrats? James, here's an open question for you. And then, I want you to expand on this a little if you can. Do you think the members of the corporate press are going to be falling over themselves in the next 24 to 48 hours to get the various Democratic presidential candidates to disavow themselves from the Antifa protests in Portland, James? Do you think?
Oh, hell no. There's no way. That's got zero chance. In fact, I don't think there'll be a single question given to any of them at any time, or else we would already see it. They're not even willing to tweet out that they disagree with it. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit, actually, to the dipshit Brian Stelter. I mean, I guarantee you that you're not going to see that out of, Chris Cuomo. You're not going to see that out of Kamala Harris. You're not going to see that come off of Nancy Pelosi's desk. So you got to give him credit. I mean, we shit on Brian Stelter because he deserves it every fucking day. So when you got to equally say, hey, the guy gets some credit there for at least making the proper announcement of that this shit is actually what should be intolerable. I mean, that guy could die. He still could die. And that's why I said this last night on Ladies of Liberty. He got checked into the hospital because of a brain bleed. And that same exact brain contusion is what killed someone like Billy Mays. You know, the guy that used to be out there, Billy Mays here for Wonder Shit. You have to buy your Wonder Shit right now. That guy died from a simple bump of the head in an airplane when they hit turbulence, and he died that night in his sleep. That's how serious those types of injuries are. And these guys cracked him over the head. They cut another elderly dude. You could see, I mean, the guy needed staples to pull his head back together. And these people think this is okay, that this is a tolerable thing in the society. But I will say one thing. A lot of people want to unmask these guys. This is a touchy subject for me. Because there's a reason that you have to be able to not be non-identifiable, and it's actually because the entire reason we are allowed civil disobedience is to take back our country from our government. And if we can't go against our government, we got issues. See, if you're not allowed to wear that mask to protest the government, then they can clearly, look at all the technology we have nowadays, right? Facial recognition software. They're going to know every relative you have within 5 minutes. So this is a fine line here. Now I understand that they're taking advantage of that, and they're using that to basically beat the shit out of normal Americans. That should not be tolerable. That's the policing's job. That's the mayor's job. That's the city council's job. And all three of those people right now, a U.S. attorney for the feds should be filing a civil rights case against all of them, because they clearly violated their standards of protocol, which is that they have a duty to protect and serve the citizens of this country. And they did none of that. In fact, they actually called the police away from doing that. So, I mean, I understand the people's argument, but just be careful of what you wish for, because it's just like calling for government to step in against censorship. You do not want the government involved. You do not want the government involved. Ronald Reagan said, what? Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That those are the most scariest fucking words you should ever be wanting to hear. So just keep those things in mind when you say they should not be allowed to cover their face. Trust me, when it's time to go against the government, you're going to cover your face.
Yeah, and I think the mayor of Portland is now under fire. Finally, people have set their sights on him and said, "Hey, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, what side is this guy on?" So it might be one of those things that works itself out politically. He might get voted out the next time he's up. I'm not sure when that is, if that's 2020 or 2022 or something like that. I'm not sure when he's next up for election. But that's one of those things that people can definitely do to exercise their displeasure at the leadership of a certain city, forcing police to stand down and whatnot. Plus, I think, I agree with you with the masking thing. But how about a word or two from like the police union in Portland or something? Like just come out and put citizens' mind at ease. Or come out and say, well, we're getting these directions from the governor, so fuck him. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But of course, there's too much politics at play here. Speaking of the Democratic candidates who will not disavow, James, I want to draw your attention to this Salon article, one of our personal favorites here on the show. Debates. Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris stole the show, but was Donald Trump the big winner? James, I love it when Salon gets into these little moments of reflection. Only two candidates avoided Savannah Guthrie's trick questions on the economy. Otherwise, Dems walked into a trap. Thanks to NBC and the Democratic National Committee's televised beauty contest turned Big Ugly last week, the Democratic Party no longer looks like the most zealous advocate for the economic plight of the tens of a million of American families whom every week is a desperate financial struggle. It was so bad, in fact, that NBC should count the overproduced, glitz-ridden doubleheader as an in-kind contribution to Donald Trump's re-election campaign. Look at this. Taking the sword, James. The squandering of Democrats' working-class advantage came quickly. When candidates took the reactionary bait from NBC's Savannah Guthrie, a lot of you have been talking about tonight about those government health care plans that you proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question. Hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. In an instant, there appeared to be near consensus, with 9 of the 10 presidential hopefuls raising their hands to the delight of the studio audience. But former Vice President Joe Biden appeared ambivalent, which prompted Guthrie to give the supposed frontrunner a chance to opt out of the lemming charge off the cliff.
That was Joe Biden. Remember, he was kind of like, fuck, man, everybody's putting their hand up. Fuck.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, I didn't hear, explained Biden. I believe at the show of hands you did not raise your hand. Did you raise your hand? No, I did I? But Biden stammered, having fallen behind in Guthrie's demeaning game of Simon Says. Luckily for Uncle Joe, his moment of high-profile disorientation was immediately preceded by a nuanced response from Mayor Pete Buttigieg, which Biden echoed with a "like the mayor said." Buttigieg explained Public Health 101. Our country is healthier when everybody is healthier. Yep. Great work. Great work. Also, James, in breaking news, water is wet and nighttime is night. I just want to clear up these things that people might be confused with. Then the South Bend mayor went on to also explain that's not something that's not widely grasped by the public. Undocumented immigrants actually pay sales and property taxes, and what he endorsed when he raised his hand was not a handout, but an insurance program. What? It was an insurance program, Jays. This is what happens when a political party gets into bed with the corporate news media. In exchange for the broadcast platform, the party let neoliberal pundits frame the debate, and Democrats were reduced to a caricature of themselves. Look at that from Salon. You know, because you think, oh, wow, Salon's actually saying the way it happened. Salon's saying that they're abandoning the working class, and this is horrible. No, actually, it's worse than that. What Salon's saying here is they didn't go left enough. They didn't go far left enough because the neoliberal, you know, the moderates were framing the questions. So what the problem for the Democrats was they weren't actually going far enough to the left, James. How did you find the dynamics? Because we haven't had a chance to talk about the debates, you and I. How did you find the dynamics of what was happening up there on the stage?
Communism good, Orange Man bad. That was pretty much good. That's 2 days worth of that's 2 days worth of debates right there.
That's it. Fair enough.
No, that's really it. These guys, everything they did was about socialism, communism, and Trump sucks. Yeah. Like, I mean, every answer to every question. Let's see, give everybody everything free and fuck Trump. I mean, they could have had the debates over in 5 minutes. They could have put them all on the stage, and they could have just said that and been done.
I thought there were a couple of moments. I think a couple of the candidates do well on individual issues, but then fail in other areas. So, for example, I know you spoke about this on Friday night. Tulsi Gabbard's anti-war messaging game, I think, is very strong, but then she loses out in other diplomacy areas, other policy areas. Mayor Pete Buttigieg wins with, you know, the I'm a local guy who understands local issues take, but he lacks that big stage experience, and that was showing, I think. I think he looked sort of uncomfortable and out of place up there, but I think, you know, he's the dark horse for mine still, but I think he'll be stronger for the run in 2024. So I think he'll go again in 2024, and he might be a much more difficult prospect after another 4 years of Trump potentially as well. Joe Biden is leading amazingly with African-American voters. Were you aware of this?
I heard that, but I think it's bullshit.
He's the most popular with African-American voters. And apparently this is something I heard from Robert Barnes, the InfoWars lawyer, James, who's made a lot of money betting on politics over the last 20 years, because in other countries you can bet on politics like you would sports. And he said that since the 1970s, no Democrat has won the nomination without being the most popular with the African-American community. Mm-hmm. And Joe Biden is the most popular with the African-American community. He also said before the debates that this means that all of the other candidates are going to do what they can to chip away at Joe Biden's support with African-Americans. And then you can imagine my lack of shock when Kamala Harris did what she did, right? Attacking him on racial issues. So he absolutely nailed it. I don't think Kamala Harris can win. I think the media is going to celebrate her because, one, she's a woman, and two, she was going after the old white guy. But I don't think the Democrat rank and file will support that. I still think Joe Biden's the front runner, amazingly, because he's cagey and he'll basically support anything he needs to support at the time he needs to support it in order to win the nomination, right? So he's still the establishment pinup boy. He's probably going to get the bulk of the donor money as well from the lobbies. So I think it's going to be very difficult to unseat him at this point. Would you agree with that, or do you think I'm way off?
No, actually, I think your assessment's pretty damn close. I mean, I still see dark horses coming in from the outside that aren't declared yet. I know, shocking. There's already 25 motherfuckers running for this race, but I just feel like, you know, half of them are going to take a seat here really quickly, especially if we get to, you know, the first state primaries, those kinds of things. But It's all about money right now, and they're trying to find their direction. Right now, everybody that's in the race is all about activating their base. That's all it is. It has none of these debates even give a shit about who's the front runner. The polls, this is all just political theater, but it's all about engaging whoever their base is. Once they get them active and fired up and happy, then it's about consolidating that base behind somebody. And you're right, in general politics, on both sides of the aisle, works the same way. Whoever the donors feel comfortable that they can control, that they have a say with, that they can get their people in the door. I mean, and let's face it, Joe Biden is the poster boy for I don't know how to do a fucking thing. I need 3 naps a day, and if you come in and tell me what to do, I'll fucking do it. I mean, this is like exactly what Biden is going to do. So, of course, the big money donors, that's exactly who they want. They want their puppet in the White House. And so, from being a Trump supporter, I desperately want Biden to win the nomination because Donald Trump's going to destroy this motherfucker. We voted Biden out of office with Trump. America said, fuck no, we do not want any more of these crazy motherfuckers in the White House. I mean, he's got so much baggage after 50 years in Washington that if you can't beat Biden, you suck.
And one other thing I want to point out too, James, a topic that we've often touched on this show, that being if the Democrats want to get any chance to become anything other than, the coastal elite party, then they need to be focusing more on why they're losing so much support from white middle class and blue collar voters, in that whole space between LA and New York. Now, in the first debate, one guy, Tim Ryan, who nobody knows, he's from Ohio, he came out and said, we have a perception problem in the Democrat Party. We need to realign the Democrat Party more towards the working class and the middle class, James. And, he said there is a perception out there that this is a party for the elites and the elitists, and we need to change that. And he was booed. He was booed by the audience, believe it or not.
Yeah, him and de Blasio, these fucking guys. It's just a perception. No, dipshits. There's a reality. Right? You fucking hate us. All of your policies are anti-American. You want us to pay more in taxes. You want to give all of our shit that we worked for to the illegal people that didn't work for it. You want to fucking silence us. You want us to not drink fucking too much soda, not smoke, pay $20 a gallon for gas. You fucking hate the working class. It's not a perception. Your policies literally say, fuck you, working class.
But he didn't even have to go that far. I think just highlighting the problem, because, in politics, James, there's that saying, perception is reality, right? And you just highlighted it there. But even in just highlighting the problem, the people in the audience were so offended by the prospect of a Democrat candidate trying to become more popular with, the middle class and the blue collar voters, that they booed him. Like if that's not evident of the problem plaguing Democrat Party politics, nothing is, right? But here's one for you. I've got a new favorite candidate in this race. I've got a new favorite. She's not the favorite because I think she'll win. She's my favorite because she's completely batshit crazy.
Did you get your healing crystals?
To Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson. Now listen to some of this. This is some of Marianne Williamson's tweets, James. Are you ready for this? I want this chick to be the president. I don't even care anymore. Burn it all down. Burn it all down. Just for my amusement. Listen to this. Marianne Williamson back in 2011, James. Everyone feels on some level like an alien in this world because we are. We come from another realm of consciousness and long for home. God is big. Swine flu is small. See every cell of your body filled with divine light. Pour God's love on our immune systems. Truth protects. A grey sky is actually a blue sky covered up by grey clouds. A guilty person is actually an innocent soul covered up by mistaken behavior. Calling all goddess types, James. This is a perfect time to do ritualistic nature ceremonies invoking divine alignment between humanity and nature. You know what she sounds like to me? she sounds like she sounds exactly like the 20-year-old version of me. She sounds like she doesn't sound like the 20-year-old version of me. She sounds like somebody the 20-year-old version of me would have tried desperately to bang. That being like some whacked out hippie chick on LSD. You know what I mean?
Oh my God!
Somebody who'll dance naked in the rain. You know?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay, let God come in you. Visualize the oil spill plugged. Close your eyes for 5 minutes and see angels coming over it, filling it with sane and sacred thoughts.
Rarely would I
Burning
ever
potpourri,
say this.
taking copious amounts of drugs and banging on a dirty mattress in an apartment somewhere.
Rarely would I ever say this, but Stefan in the chat just nailed this. He said, Earth sex! Earth sex! Remember the Boogie Bumper story of the chicks having sex with the planet? Oh my God. That is exactly what this hippy dippy chick is. Fucking batshit crazy.
One more for you, James. One more for you. This is why I want her in the White House. If you want a simple explanation for what's happening in America, watch Avatar again. Isn't she wonderful?
Oh my God.
Isn't she wonderful?
Isn't this the chick that said she was going to defeat Donald Trump with love? All her policies were, I'm going to do it with love. Love is going to be the answer.
Yeah, someone in the chat correctly identified her as Moonbeam.
Yes.
Moonbeam Williamson. Vote one for Moonbeam for peace and heaven on earth. I want to play you a little clip here, James, from Rachel Maddow's show and get your thoughts. I'm just going to tee this one up for you. Hit it out of the park. You go for it.
We also got the conservative-dominated Supreme Court catching the Trump administration in the act of trying to jerry-rig the census so it undercounts Latinos and thereby Is that another way, James? Is that another way of saying only citizens should be on the census?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I needed to use my Rachel Maddow translator there.
Yeah, Rachel is,
because it's actually the reality is very different than anything that she's saying. I'll give you another minute or so.
Cuts Latino voting power. They tried it. They lied to the courts about why they were doing it and how, and the court stopped them. An incredibly interesting and dramatic ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday. At the same time, almost literally at exactly the same time, we also got the court giving thumbs up to the states totally rigging congressional districts to benefit whichever party is in control in that state. And I know the whole gerrymandering thing sometimes just sounds like another fine print process thing, but that gerrymandering ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday, it utterly scrambles the playing field for electoral politics for the next decade. And
just a reminder why this would be a big issue for Rachel Maddow and people of her ideological bent. Aren't the Republicans in control of the majority of state houses, James? Yes. Bingo. So let's carry on. Just keep that in mind.
Urgently changes what both parties are going to need to prioritize right now for the next year, for the next election, because whatever happens in the presidential election in 2020, whatever happens in the House and the Senate elections in 2020, all of a sudden, thanks to that Supreme Court ruling yesterday, we now know that the thing you're someday going to look back on and care the most about in terms of what happened politically in 2020 is not necessarily the presidential race or the Senate race or the House race. It's the elections for your state legislature of all.
Yes, because isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Exactly.
Now, pardon my ignorance, James, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding, again, my admitted ignorant foreign devil understanding, that when the Constitution was framed and the Founding Fathers were discussing how this republic was going to operate, that the local government would be essentially more important than the federal government. A system of competitive federalism where power decentralized power close to the hands of the people themselves is the most workable situation here. So it should go local to state to federal in that order. And here we have, obviously a Democrat on TV but surely the federal government should be controlling everything, right? I mean, we all agree, don't we? But apparently they don't, because the Supreme Court has ruled otherwise. So have I missed something here? Am I wrong? Or
no, you're spot on. It's bottom-up government. That's the way the Constitution was written. This is why the 17th Amendment is what? Everybody, come on. You all know now. It's the biggest horse cock up your ass that you've ever had in the Constitution. Yes. The 17th Amendment should have never been allowed to happen because it completely fucked everybody.
Wait. James, if you're going to make comments like that, let me just get in touch with Mary Ann Williamson, because I think she would be more than happy to join in this discussion. Okay, let me just light some incense first. I'll light some incense candles and get Mary Ann on the phone. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, look, you're exactly right. The 17th Amendment is specifically what got people to quit paying attention to their local state legislature elections, and that's why it's so fucking damaging to the entire America. Now, the whole premise of what I'm supposed to be talking about is the Supreme Court decisions, and they were both constitutional, both written correctly, and both highlight specific things. They're lying to you directly if you read the actual Supreme Court opinion, and it's literally says that the president has the authority and the latitude to put almost any question he wants on the census. The administration has almost free reign at that. The problem here, which I've been equating, and I'll say it one more time, even though everybody's probably already heard this, is that it's exactly like in a right-to-work state where you can fire anyone for any reason or no reason. The problem is, if you give a reason, you may be held liable for that reason. Example, if you fire someone for stealing, but you fail to ever prove that they stole, 6 months from now they can sue you and you're going to end up owing them back pay because you failed to prove the case that they stole something. You're better off just saying, fuck you, take a walk. And then it's done. It's done, over with, you'll never pay them another fucking dime. That's what happened here. And it's not the president, these fucking retards lying again, it was the Secretary of Commerce. It was his comments that were out of step with what the fuck was going on. And he didn't even have to explain anything. All he had to say was, fuck you, we're putting it on there. I mean, this is the problem. Now, here's the other side of this, is essentially in the opinion, what they said was, you're not ready for the Supreme Court. They kicked it back to the lower courts to say, you guys got some issues here. Both sides need to work out and get it figured out because the administration can put whatever they want on there. What was this? What does this all boil down to? A small delay. That's it. That's just all it is, a small delay. That's why the president said, you know what? I'm going to make sure the lawyers, we just delay printing the census ballots. He can do that. We just delay the census. Or you know what else the president can do? Fuck you, Supreme Court. And just fucking do what he wants anyways. You know why? They have no enforcement arm. The only thing that he would pay for is political. Right now, we're already going to pay politically. I want you guys to be very aware right here. He's in a no-lose situation. People think that he's in a lose situation. He's not. Tell me how the politics change if he puts the census question on there, right? He ignores the Supreme Court. How do the politics change? The people that hate Donald Trump still going to hate Donald Trump. The people that love Donald Trump are still going to love Donald Trump. Nothing's going to change. The fucking House of Representatives, all the fucking batshit lefty crazies, they want to fucking impeach him now. So why the fuck wouldn't they want to impeach him in the future? Absolutely nothing changes. The president can't lose. Optically, he's trying to make sure he's doing the right thing because historically, he doesn't want them to come back and say, look at this guy. He was batshit crazy. He ignored the Supreme Court. But in actual reality, that's what he could do.
And the politics, the political situation, though, James, will change because if they put the citizenship question on the census, then all of a sudden California is going to lose a big chunk of its allotted electoral college votes. Am I wrong? Because now the non-citizens are being counted as population, and population is what drives electoral college votes, right?
Yeah. Ironically, the left, this is something else. Okay, so gerrymandering has always been, it's actually accounted for in the Constitution, yes. If you guys don't understand that. So they did an excellent thing by saying, get the fucking courts out of the political process. They don't belong in there. They have no authority. They're actually returning the courts to the Constitution and getting them out of political processes, especially ones that are written about in the Constitution.
Sorry to interrupt, James. This is what happened in Pennsylvania prior to the 2018 midterms, isn't it? The Supreme Court in Pennsylvania came back with a ruling and basically turned a whole bunch of Republican seats into Democrat seats. Is that roughly right?
Yeah,
Am I on the right track?
Right. Yeah, you're on the right track. That's what they tried. Yeah. That's the gist of what's going on. So they got the courts the fuck out of political process, and that is a good thing at all times. So it's up to we the people to decide our country. It's up to we the people to make sure that we're doing the right things and electing the right motherfuckers. So the same thing is going to be true here with the gerrymandering thing, is that California, if the census question gets on there, this is actually an open question, right? If everybody in California still takes the census and answers that question no, it actually, now there's going to be a challenge to whether or not that person counts as a person to be representative in order for the districts to be drawn. So it actually on its own doesn't actually won't actually delete seats from California. But if those people don't take the census because they're scared of ICE coming to get them, that is how it will lessen the number of population and cause a redistricting and a loss of electoral college seats in California. So it's something we have to do. The citizenship question has to be on the census, but you have to be realistic in your understanding that this is not a one-time deal. There's a lot of complexity to what's going to happen because the way the Constitution is written to cover these issues, but it is the right thing to do.
Fair enough. Speaking of California dreaming, James, I want to draw your attention to this article. Democrats veer left on immigration at debates, pleasing base and Trump. This is from the New York Times, known right-wing conspiracy website. For an issue as thorny and vexing as immigration policy. Oh, it's very vexing, James. It's a very vexing issue as the immigration policy. Do we allow people to simply meander and wander across the border without being checked or vetted of any kind? Or do we do our best, our absolute best, our utmost best to at least try to intercept them? It's a very vexing question indeed, sir. A question during the Democratic debate on Thursday was remarkably clear. Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation. Jose Diaz-Balart, one of the moderators asked. 8 candidates raised their hands, some more eagerly than others. Former Vice President Joe Biden raised a finger, a solitary finger. When pressed by Mr. Diaz-Balart about whether he could deport undocumented immigrants without a criminal record, Mr. Biden did little to clarify his specific stance, instead defending the Obama administration's policies that deported roughly 3 million undocumented migrants. He praised former President Barack Obama's record on immigration and said, because this is Joe Biden's campaign, basically, right? Like, hey, remember, I was the guy who worked with Obama. Vote for me. Like, if you love Obama, vote for Biden. That's basically what he's running on. To compare him and what this guy is doing is absolutely, I find it close to immoral. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with things. That's how you say a lot without actually saying anything. The debates in which there was almost unanimous embraces by the top polling candidates for decriminalizing illegal border crossings, I still can't believe it. Like, I did a whole video breakdown of them saying illegal immigration should be legalized, and that's how we're going to deal with illegal immigration. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm hearing here. Is this the most powerful country on earth? What the fuck are these people talking about? This is a joke. It has to be a joke, right? No other country on the face of the earth, James, would say the problem, the way we're going to deal with the murder problem is by making murder legal.
That's right.
Then the politicians can come out the next year and say, guess what? Great news. We've reduced murder down to 0%.
That's right.
Bravo. By making it legal. And then on top of that, they want to give more money to the countries where these illegal aliens are coming from. So they're going to bribe people not to come, but if they do come, they're not going to charge them with anything. What a plan. What a plan. What could possibly go wrong? I know what I would do, James. If I was in Honduras or Guatemala, I would wait for my please don't come to America check to arrive, and then I would use that to buy supplies to go to America.
Double dipping, baby. Double dipping.
That's it. I got my please don't come to America a check, kids. Come on, let's go. I'm going to go buy a car. Let's go to America. Sounds great. Mr. Trump seemed to think so, taking to Twitter almost immediately, writing, all Democrats just raised their hands for giving millions of illegal aliens unlimited health care. How about taking care of American citizens first? That's the end of that race. For more than a decade, politicians from both parties have tried and failed to overhaul the country's immigration policies. It proved to be an unsolvable conundrum for the Obama administration. This is the thing. They act like it's so complex. For me, it's a question of will. It's a question of willpower.
Let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you this, and you'll love this. But this is the answer. This is the simplest answer ever to be solved in the history of America. You know why it's so simple? All we have to do is ask Australia to send us all their documents, and we'll just copy those. That's all we got to do. Just get all the shit from Australia. Say, hey, buddy, can Boogie? In fact, why don't you go print all that shit, ship it over to the president? Wham, bam, done. We'll sign it tomorrow. It's that fucking easy. Yep. That's how simple it is. Because all of the problems have been addressed, all of the problems have been solved, and there's a working model over decades of time. Everything's there. Environmental impact statement, everything. Why? Because fucking Australia's full of batshit lefties too. But at least in Australia, they realize, fuck you, we don't want all of Asia to come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny too. This is why I'm saying it's a question of willpower. Do you have the will to be called a heartless, demonic bastard by the corporate press day in, day out? Do you have the will to be labeled a racist? Do you have the will to be attacked by other leaders around the world for your immigration policy? Now, to me, Donald Trump strikes me as somebody who does have the will to put up with that because he's basically been putting up with that anyway up until this point. So why not make it official? Why not do it? The funny thing was, we had strong... Here's another thing, too, for the comrades, our Democrat Party viewers who are watching this program, James, or listening to this podcast, which you can get on iTunes and Podbean, incidentally. When you have a strong border, when you have strong policies in regards to illegal immigration, something very paradoxical happens. And this is what we've discovered in the Australian system. When the government cracks down on illegal aliens coming into the country, support for legal immigration actually goes up. People are more willing to support legal immigration when illegal immigration is stamped out. Why? Because if you have large numbers of illegal immigrants entering the country, this actually fuels anti-immigration full stop, right? Because people are saying, well, why are we accepting, 200,000 immigrants every year? There's people flooding over the border. If you crack down on the border, people are going to be more willing to accept immigrants from other countries on earth. And this is just the way it works out. So for those who are saying, oh, you're anti-immigrant, you can quite rightly say, no, we're just cracking down on the illegals so people would be more willing to accept legal immigration from other countries. And isn't that what we want? You're absolutely been, there's people all over the internet that prove you correct right now that are saying, fuck it, stop all immigration for a 10-year moratorium until we can get a handle on what the fuck's going on, right? So literally, if we adopted Australian immigration policy tomorrow and we put the citizen question on the census tomorrow, by 2 years from now, the same people saying 10-year moratorium will say, okay, we got a handle on it. Let's get back in the game. I mean, literally, as long as we did the right things, all of those people would be on board. You're 100% correct. Yep. And when the Conservative then Prime Minister Tony Abbott reinstituted the tough border stance back in 2012, I think it was, 2012, 2013, he was called a Nazi and a bigot and a racist by the leaders of Europe, who then went on to orchestrate the migrant crisis in Europe. And when he went back to Europe to give another speech, he said something along the lines of, last time I was here, you really didn't like my ideas, and now the European Commission was actually asking the Australian government how to stop illegal boats coming across into Europe. So how the worm turns very, very quickly. But that leads us to tonight's edition of The Hammering, James.
Oh, shit. This is going to fuck up. Watch.
Stop the hammering.
James, Democratic candidate Julian Castro, you wouldn't call him a front runner. You wouldn't even call him mid-pack. You wouldn't even call him an ankle biter at this stage. But he is doing his absolute best to get notice in the corporate press, to get airtime on the corporate press by saying some of the most outlandish shit you have ever heard in your entire life. Let's check out Julian on CNN.
2020 Democrats are back on the campaign trail this weekend after the first round of highly anticipated and sometimes fiery presidential debates. And for 2020 hopeful Julian Castro, that means drawing attention to the crisis at the border after his breakout moment at the debate.
Crisis? What are you talking about? There's no crisis.
Oh, Christ.
Did he say crisis? Pretty sure it's manufactured crisis, right? I mean, did I miss a fucking memo here? What's going on? When did this crisis start happening? Oh, that's right. The day after the midterms.
That's right. That's right. I was going to say.
Yeah. The day after the midterms. Why don't any of these people actually get asked why they said for months and months it was a manufactured crisis and then immediately about-faced? Did you see how quick and swift that was? Now, there's a clear explanation for it. It's a very cynical political explanation, which in politics it most often is. But the reason is, before the midterm elections, you say that the crisis is manufactured in order to motivate your base and to say that paint Donald Trump and the Republicans as evil racists, spreading conspiracy theories and fear. The day after the midterm elections, because now we're focused on 2020, you say there is a crisis at the border and Donald Trump isn't doing enough to fix it because he hates the brown children, right?
Isn't this the guy with the twin brother? So I want to know what the under-over is before he starts using his twin brother to do campaign appearances with him and just pretend that they're the same guy so that they can cover twice as many rallies. Yeah, so you can cover twice as many rallies as the rest of the Democrats. I'm going to bet you that these fucking people will do it too.
Julian Castro is a go-getter. He's been, Mika, Julian Castro gets my vote because he is the hardest working Latino man I have ever seen in my life. He was giving a rally in New York and then 4 hours later, a rally in Los Angeles. I mean, this guy, it seems like he's everywhere. Come on, Mika. This guy's a hero.
He sparred with Beto O'Rourke on immigration.
Go ahead.
How would you like to be the fucking Secret Service, man? This guy comes with his own body double.
Fantastic. Just like Saddam.
State legislature.
Joining me now from San Antonio is Democratic presidential candidate and former Housing Secretary Julian Castro. Sir, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you.
Before we do get to immigration, I want to ask you about this historic meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un at the DMZ. Is this, in your view, a positive step?
Now, this is going to be a tricky question for Julian because remember, well, I mean, these people do change their mind without any explanation whatsoever, so it's probably not going to be that tricky. But remember, Donald Trump was going to cause an international nuclear war with North Korea. He was never meant to go there and shake hands with Kim Jong-un. Remember, Donald Trump was reckless and hot-headed, and he was dealing with this in the entirely wrong way, James. It was only going to end in conflict. Remember that.
Well, look, I'm always for speaking to our adversaries, opening up diplomatic conversations.
Interesting.
The problem is that this president seems bent on approaching this very erratically, very haphazardly. As you know, Brianna, he did this at the last minute.
He did it at the last minute, James.
That's what matters. That's all that matters. Because, see, if the timing is better, then it matters. But if the timing sucks, well, then all bets are off. I mean, let's face it. For 50 years, the State Department hasn't done a fucking thing in North Korea. But Donald Trump's done it in like 15 months. So, obviously, we should go back to doing it the ineffective way, and let's get back to pushing red buttons.
It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, James. It was very spontaneous. Donald Trump was just on Twitter one night and he DM'd Kim Jong-un and said something along the lines of feeling cute, might go hang at the DMZ, I don't know. And Kim Jong-un was like, yeah, okay, I'll meet you there. We'll have handshakes and sushi or something.
The problem with that is that to be effective, this usually goes the other way around. There's a lot of staff work that goes into preparing a meeting like this so that concrete terms are on the table and you can get something out of the meeting. They had the first summit, the Singapore summit, I guess just over a year.
You know, a lot of staff work goes into this, James, so you can have concrete terms on the table before the meeting. Look, haven't we been discussing the terms for the last 18 months, roughly?
Yep.
Like, what did I miss a fucking memo? What's going on? Are there new terms now? Did Donald Trump say, Kim, okay, here's the new terms. I'm feeling cute. Might go to the DMZ on Saturday. I don't know. Feeling cute. I want what we had before, but I want you to give me one of those snappy black outfits. They look tremendous. Can I get one of those in the deal? It'd be a tremendous deal. Kim Jong-un replied by saying, absolutely, Mr. Trump, but you give me quarter pounder because I'm fucking starving. Okay? And there you go. That was the new deal. But here's the thing. all of these career politicians are like, no, we need staff working around the clock, to come up with some kind of arrangement. Donald Trump, one of the reasons he was elected is because of a rejection of all that, of all of these career political underlings who need months and months and months to nut out a deal. He can just go there, sit across the table from the guy, and then shake hands at the end and say, all right, we got it done. What was the problem? Right?
Absolutely. Fantastic comment, though, in the chat right now. Concrete terms. Isn't that what Antifa does?
Yes. Concrete milkshakes to go with your quarter pounder, Kim.
Ago, and North Korea has not abided by what it promised at that summit, which was to produce an inventory of their weapons stockpile so that there could be a baseline for further talks. So I'm not quite sure why this president is so bent on elevating.
I can see James laughing.
These guys it just doesn't make sense.
What North Korea should do is post an inventory of all their weapons on Instagram. Right? that's what should take place here.
Google Maps. They're going to do Google Earth. They're going to get out the map and they're going to say, okay, President Trump, right here, this is where we make all the nukes. Right here, this is where we shoot all the missiles. Right over here, this is where we grow all the sushi.
This is where we take our coal from, okay? All right?
She's fucking nice.
The profile of a dictator like Kim Jong-un when Kim Jong-un has not lived up to his promise from the first summit. It's been a failure so far. We can always, and I will be hopeful that there's some progress that comes out of this.
Is restarting talks, again, the president said that this is reopening discussion. Is that not progress in your view?
Well, usually that reopening of discussion is done by lower level staff. And
oh my God!
So the problem is, so the issue here is, oh my God. I want to thank Leon for loosening up that phlegm that's been stuck in my throat for the last 2 weeks. Thank you, sir. So the issue here is Donald Trump is taking too much of a hands-on approach when it comes to dealing with North Korea. What he should have done is delegate this to some low-level employees.
That's right. Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Get Johnson in here. Johnson, get in here. Get the fuck over to North Korea and bring Kim a double quarter pounder right now. I mean, these fucking people are absolutely fucking insane. But here's the thing. He's actually telling the American people what we've been telling the American people all along. Donald Trump is an executive of an actual business. The rest of these people actually do let lower level function people make policy decisions. That's the big difference. That's the whole ball game. That's why we love Donald Trump, because we hired him to make decisions. We didn't hire fucking Johnson in mail department to go make decisions.
You know, everybody, thank you. This North Korea situation, it's a tremendous situation. It's going to be very difficult, very lot of complex issues going here, and this is very important for our administration heading into 2020. This is why I've taken the decision to what the hell is this guy's name? Max? Is it Max? Max Johnson. Okay. This is why I'm going to put Johnson here in charge of the North Korea situation. I don't know who he is. I apparently he has a wife who had a birthday sometime in the last year. So happy birthday to your wife.
I love how the guy's name is Max Johnson.
Max Johnson. Max Johnson.
Is that short for maximum? Is that short for maximum as in Maximum Johnson? Oh my
Maximum Johnson. The big swinging Johnson.
The reason for that is that you want to work up toward an agreement that the president can get, something that's concretely on the table. What it seems like is that for the president, this is what he's about. It's all show. It's all symbolism. It's not substance.
No substance.
Right after the Singapore summit a year ago, he told the American people.
Because getting Maximum Johnson to get engaged with North Korea in the talks, James, that would show that it's all about substance and not show. To get a low-level employee to handle this very difficult situation, that would prove it's all substance. Him taking it on board himself and actually going and meeting with Kim Jong-un and shaking his hand in the DMZ, that's just for clicks, mate. That's just for clicks. Should have been Max Johnson there on the border. Max Johnson meeting.
It should have been video of Max Johnson engaged.
Yeah. It should have. The headline should have been "Unknown Trump subordinate meets North Korean man." Like that's the headline here. Let's be real. Unknown employee goes to North Korea. there's your story.
Folks will remember this, that North Korea was no longer a threat, but it turns out that then they did weapons testing after that. So there is a problem here. He keeps telling us one thing, but the reality is another, and haphazardly meeting with Kim Jong-un, raising his profile, strengthening him.
Haphazardly.
Wait. We've got this fucking chat room. Oh, fucking God. I wish we were giving away a prize on this show, because I got to tell you this. So Jaybird in the fucking chat just came up with this. So we're sending Max Johnson. They're sending Big Dick Yang.
Dick Yang. Dick Yang at his list of demands. Oh, James, the sword fighting on the border. That would have been the issue there. James is dying over there. He's having a stroke.
I'm fucking dying.
To say what I love here too is that it was haphazardly put together. Like you can imagine Donald Trump just jumping on a plane and walking up to the cockpit and say, "Hey, take me to North Korea." And the Secret Service men running after him going, Mr. President, we need to, hey, you do what I tell you. Come on. There's no time to plan here. I'm going to go hang out with Kim. Max and I have already figured this out. We're meeting Big Dick on the border with Kim Jong. So are you coming or what? Big Dick and Max are on the way.
Oh, fuck.
Across the world.
Ban Ki-moon was on the phone going, this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying Ban Ki-moon was on the phone going, this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. What the fuck? How are we going to do this?
You talk to him, Max. You talk to Ban Ki, Max. You get this sorted out.
I want to talk to you about immigration right now.
I'm glad that we've invented a new meme now. Whenever something needs to be done on the world stage, it needs to be send in Max Johnson. Send in Maximum Johnson.
That's right. Fuck yes, dude. Oh my God. I can see the memes now. Get me Max.
I'm looking forward to when the Tories in the UK finally sort out their leadership issues and elect Boris Johnson. Then we can have Max Johnson meet Boris Johnson. It'll be the battle of the Johnsons, James.
Now, the president is saying that he plans to start some raids next week on some migrant families who've been court-ordered to leave the country. There's Los Angeles and Chicago who have said that they're going to direct their police departments to not assist ICE in rounding up immigrants. Would you encourage police departments to follow suit in other cities?
Yes, I would, because I believe that local law enforcement should do its job and federal law enforcement has its own job to do. So I'm glad to see that Los Angeles and Chicago are doing that. The other thing is, what's very clear is that this president likes to terrorize these immigrant families.
Terrorize.
He likes to scare them. He likes to use this issue as a
they're here illegally!
He likes to use this issue as a political weapon, James. Meanwhile, Julian Castro on that debate stage was saying that everybody needs to be allowed in. If you're opposed to this, then you are an awful, racist, bigoted person, right? And he talked about the tragedy, the death, James, of the father and his daughter, the guy who dragged his daughter who couldn't swim across the Rio Grande. Remember that guy? In order to get into the United States. And was talking about the picture and stuff. So we're obviously really against, aren't we, Mr. Castro? Really against people using immigration as a political weapon, aren't we? We really don't like that, do we, sir? Very disappointing. Very unfortunate. What do you make of the local police? I actually, this may be a bit unpopular. I actually tend to agree with him that local law enforcement should do what, deal with local law enforcement issues, and the feds should deal with what the feds deal with. But where those two paths cross over, I think, is the problem. So if the local law enforcement are aware of a group of illegal immigrants in a particular area, then it is their responsibility, is it not, to inform the feds, to say, hey, You know,
it's actually a crime.
We've got these people here. Sorry?
It's actually a federal crime for them to ignore.
Not to.
That's right. They have to. As an officer of the court, that's how they're empowered. That's their writ of command. This is how they are empowered to police. Okay? As an officer of the court, it is illegal. It is a federal crime to not report a crime that you witnessed. Period.
Yep.
It's just, there's no other way around it.
And I love the language. The language game is so obvious now, it's barely worth pointing out, but President Trump likes to terrorize immigrant families. Immigrant families, James, not illegal immigrants, immigrant families, right?
Yeah.
Fear and paranoia in his base, and he thinks that this is going to help him get reelected with a narrow election.
Fear and paranoia in his base, so it's back to not being a crisis again. Can we just decide? Can we decide whether it's a crisis or not? Can we at least nail that down? There is a crisis at the border, but we're rounding up immigrants. Then it's not a crisis. It's fear and paranoia, James. What the hell is going on?
Get me Johnson. Johnson, get to the border. Figure this shit out. Johnson, is this a fucking crisis or not?
Johnson, get your big swinging dick down to that border immediately, sir.
Electoral college victory in 2020, the way he got in 2016. And I draw a very, very straight line between these types of actions by the president, or at least the threat, and the proposal to have a citizenship question on the U.S. Census. He wants to scare these immigrant families. He wants self-deportation, and he wants to chill the others from participating in American life. The fact is that our immigrant community, whether documented or undocumented, add a lot to this country. They help us move forward. They don't.
They absolutely add a lot. They add a ton, Julia. Just go to the federal prisons and you can see how much they fucking add. That's right, motherfucker. Go down. Check it out. They add what? $3 billion for each state in federal funding in order to put more people in that fucking prison. What do they make up? 35% of the prison population? Let me see. What else do they fucking add? Oh, yeah. Less jobs. What else do they add? Oh, yeah. 25% of all DUIs in the entire fucking country. Let's see. What else do they fucking add? Oh, yeah. All those dead fucking Americans from them drunk driving, you stupid fuck.
And James, I want to end it on this note. Just another indicator. If you are, I'm somebody who likes to give the best possible case to the other side, James. And on this case, it's the Democrats. I don't think that the majority of Democrats are like this. I don't think the majority of Democrats are this whacked out. I don't think the majority of Democrats think that illegal immigration should be legalized. But if you are a blue-collar, traditional Democrat voter, you now have more than ample evidence for you to reassess your voting habits in the future, because the potential leadership of your party is actively working against your best interests. Now, you might be friends with illegal immigrants, you might not have a problem with it, blah, blah, blah. But if you are struggling to find blue-collar work in an area with high illegal immigration, guess why? Guess why that's the case? Do you know why the top of the two parties have been shunting this back and forward? Because for their own reasons, they both want large numbers of illegal immigrants. Whether on the right it's for consumers and, low-paid wages, James, or on the left if it's for, cultural and voting reasons, they both have their reasons. But you can now, as a blue-collar worker in the United States of America, actively identify that the party that is supposed to be for the blue-collar workers legitimately cares more about people who aren't American than they do about you. You. And that, if that's not reason enough for you to assess your voting habits, then nothing will be. So there's Julian Castro. Make illegal immigration legal again. Send Max Johnson to the border of the North Korean to meet with Big Dick Yang in North Korea. And if you're a blue-collar voter, there's a big reason right there why you should probably reassess who you're voting for and why. And that's your hammering.
Stop the hammering.
Folks, that is about all the time we got for you. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and look forward to the Johnson-Yang meeting at the North Korean border, because I can promise you when that meeting happens, Boogie and I will be there with front row seats commentating for you. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at RealPersonPLTCS. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at TAV Show, and you can find all our prior episodes on TAVshow.com. Aloha. Everybody have a great night.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised, with your help, to fully launch before the end of 2019. We look forward to partnering with you.